Ideas for Impact, a new podcast where innovation meets sustainability head on. Let's take a fresh look at how we do business. Changemakers are innovating solutions to some of the toughest challenges we face in our world. In the process, they are creating their own mark on industry. Our guests are rebels with a cause. They are tearing down barriers, redefining success, and leaving a mark on their industries. Our guests are the disruptors who refuse to settle for business as usual. Join us to unravel the lessons learned behind their failures and their triumphs and uncover the hidden opportunities for positive change. Co-hosted by me, Joanna Buczkowska-McCumber, and my friend, Deborah Host.
We often think the greatest ocean discoveries only lie deep below. But sometimes the real breakthroughs can also happen right at the surface. As part of our special Ideas for Impact series exploring the future of water, we sit down with Open Ocean Robotics founder and CEO Julie Angus to talk about her tech company and how it's revolutionizing ocean data collection. With their solar-powered autonomous boats, they're not just gathering insights, they're shaping the future of marine conservation, navigation, climate change science, and so much more. And for Julie, impact isn't just an add-on. It's embedded in the company's DNA, rooted in a startup mindset and powered by a trusted team. Open Ocean Robotics is proving that scaling responsibly starts with a clear view above the waterline. Julie, it is so great to have you with us here on Ideas for Impact.
It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
I am familiar with your story, but I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit more about you and your origin story and how really, your life and work experiences really led you to building Open Ocean Robotics. So, tell us your story.
Sure. So I co-founded Open Ocean Robotics in 2018 with the mission to better understand and protect our oceans. So for me, this is very important. I have a lifelong passion for the ocean. I love it so much that I spent 5 months rowing across the Atlantic Ocean from Portugal to Costa Rica. So my time on the water has definitely shown me and allowed me to experience the beauty of the ocean, but also the challenges that the ocean faces. And a lot of those challenges are due to our inability to understand and protect our oceans. And the reason it's so difficult to understand and protect our oceans is because our oceans cover 70% of the planet. A lot of it is in very remote, difficult to access places. It's expensive to put technology on the ocean. But without being able to see our oceans, they're susceptible to challenges from pollution, illegal fishing, the impacts of climate change, and it impedes the industries that are growing on our oceans. So we think about clean energy, transportation, aquaculture, tourism. So Open Ocean Robotics was really formed with the intent to transform that. And how we're going to transform that is by creating innovations in the form of autonomous vessels, uncrewed surface vehicles that are solar powered, can recharge at sea, can go out through the toughest conditions, endure a hurricane, stay out for months on end, and they are equipped with a range of sensors to monitor the ocean so we can understand and protect it. And then they send that information back in real time. So it's like being able to see the ocean, any place in the ocean, from the comfort of your home. And so that's what we set out to do. And we are well on our way to achieving that. Since we started in 2018, we've grown to have a company that has vehicles on 3 oceans around the world. We've operated over 5,000 hours, and now we're at that stage where we're really scaling commercially. So we're going to see that accelerate at even more rapid pace.
Yeah, it's, I've been fortunate to see a bit of your journey being both here in Victoria, and it's amazing to see your growth and being able to actually, implement your vision in real life to, create that impact that you seek. And, when you think about, your why and the why for open ocean robotics, why do you believe that why is so important now more than ever before?
I think, we call ourselves Earth, but we really should call our planet ocean. The oceans are so critical to our survival. We depend on them for everything. We depend on them for food. We depend on them for our weather. We depend on them to sequester the excess CO2 that we produce. If we don't protect our oceans, we will not have a healthy planet. So we need to protect our oceans, but there's also so much opportunity in the ocean that is still untapped because it is such a difficult place to operate in. So when you think of offshore energy, when you think of aquaculture, those are industries that have the potential to scale even more if we can enhance the tools available to them to better and more intelligently grow.
With everything moving to this digital space and with your technology being operated using technology, talk about a digital ocean. How does that even come to be? What does that mean to you? What do you see that becoming in 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, so the reason we make autonomous boats is so that we can get that data. So, even though we make hardware, really we're a data company because it's that information and those insights that we need from the ocean. And we're really seeing exciting innovations in this space, thanks to AI, thanks to enhanced satellite communication. So for us, focusing on that information analytics is very important. So we have a number of initiatives right now to enhance our AI tools. We currently have 2 AI tools that run on our vehicle, so edge processing that runs out in the ocean, and that is based on our camera vision to be able to better see and identify the boats and other objects that we see on the ocean. And the other one runs on passive acoustics. So for many of our missions, we include a towed hydrophone, which allows us to listen for sounds in the ocean. So we can use that to detect marine mammals. We can use it to detect vessels. So we're becoming increasingly more intelligent in how we can use these sensors to understand our surroundings. And now with increasing AI capabilities, we're also looking at how we can fuse different data sets. So how do we take what we see, what we hear with the weather conditions, maybe with satellite data, and create a better picture of what's going on? So I do think that these are key steps towards creating a digital ocean, being more smart with the data that's collected, having more real-time processing. And now we're at the stage where we have these incredible tools that are starting to unlock that. So I think the future is very exciting for ocean intelligence. And we're really excited to be one of the companies at the forefront of this.
And being smart, we all come to recognize that there are things we know and there are things we don't. So when looking at the company holistically and growth, scale, opportunity, are you considering acquiring some of these technologies or sort of staying in your lane, growing organically, doing what you can and partnering or purchasing technologies as needed? What's sort of the game plan in that regard?
For us, it's always a balance of putting our resources where it's going to make the most impact. Because we're a startup, we're a small company. We have a team of 25, and we know the areas where we have a really great skill set, which includes, building autonomous vehicles, being able to do the data analytics on ocean data. But there are other companies that excel in areas that are extremely complementary. So where we can, we always want to leverage the best in the industry. And so we do that for our sensors. We have a number of partnerships with other companies to be able to leverage their expertise and then together create something that's more than the sum of its parts. So it's a little bit of a mix of both, I would say.
Yeah, and growth can be so complex. It sort of depends as where you're heading, but also where the industry is heading and like what the opportunity that presents itself, right? So it's a bit of like the navigation of that. And you've, talked about a lot of the work that you do. And I'm super curious if you're able to talk about, stewardship versus exploitation that you see in the marine space and the blue economy, and how your technology and or company really enables the management of that to make sure that, there is a focus on stewardship versus exploitation in our many ocean spaces.
So for our company, we help people understand the oceans better. So for any industries operating on the ocean, they can better understand the impact of what they're doing and safely monitor it. So for us, stewardship is a key mandate and goal for what we do. And we believe that more information is better. So if we're able to provide more information to the companies operating in the oceans, they will be able to better guide their operations to take care of the oceans. And I think for most companies operating in the ocean, that is a key guiding principle, because we know we need to preserve the ocean for future generations so that, our industries can continue to prosper and we can continue to build value.
Yeah. And I mean, to just like make a note on it. And I know Julie and Dora, we were talking about like why we're focusing on water and ocean for this like mini season. And it's sort of interesting when you look around and suddenly people are like, the blue economy is trending. It's the thing to look at. And it's like, well, we've always lived on this planet and there's always been, fresh water, there's the ocean. And like, but it's interesting that it's just taken so long for people to recognize how important it is and that we need to preserve it.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think it's, many of us don't live on the coast, so you're not seeing the ocean. And even if you do, you only see a portion of it. And you don't necessarily realize that pretty much everything you buy in the store, it's come by ship. So much of what we depend on is a result of the economy that the ocean drives. So it is very interesting to think of it from that perspective.
I can attest to this. Living in Austin, we see Lake Austin and Lake Travis, which is at all levels. Right now it's super low, so it can be depressing. And then recently went to Houston, where we got a glimpse of like the shipping, the logistics, the Gulf. And it's mind-blowing how much you realize the ocean is used and what it's used for. But it's also sad when you see the mess that this use can create.
Yes.
So speaking of that, and speaking of like the fact that you're running this startup, an impact focused business, the fact that you're working day in and day out to scale, like, can you step back a minute and just share with us a little bit about the challenges, like your internal motivation, like what's required to really get this going and keep it going, more importantly?
I think, some of the challenges that we face is that we're creating an innovative product in a very traditional industry. So the maritime industry is slow to change. Maritime industry has been around for millennia. It's been crucial for humanity, for shipping, for food, and it is resistant to change. So when you're creating, robot boats to collect data, that is a shift in the way that we have traditionally collected data. So you need to show the efficacy of it, you need to show the safety of it, and you need to show how this is a better way of doing things. And it's a better way because it's more affordable. It's zero emission, so you're reducing the impact to the environment. There's no noise pollution, and it keeps people safe. And that is a really big part of this. So part of the story that is important for people to understand with new technology and especially automation is that it's not taking away jobs, it's creating different kinds of jobs. So we will never fully replace a ship. Even large autonomous vessels, there will likely always be crew involved. But for small platforms like us, there are certain data sets we collect, but we will never collect everything. So it's in many ways, it's a force multiplier to ships. So it's a way for researchers, for government agencies to do more with their existing resources and to do more in a more impactful way that has less of a negative impact on either the greenhouse gas emissions or noise pollution.
This perfect segue actually for our next question, which is around, partnerships and working across these ecosystems, across, this legacy industry or industries. How have partnerships played a role for you, whether that's with government or industry or researchers or universities? Like, what role have they played for you in your evolution?
Partnerships have been really important to us. So we have partnered with end use customers since our formation. So for the last 5 years, we've offered services with our vehicles. So we work closely with our customers to deploy our vehicles, to collect the data and to understand what works and what doesn't work. So what do they need from our technology to have it meet their need? And we've used that information to improve and advance our technology. So we just released the second generation of our uncrewed surface vehicle, Data Explorer, which incorporates all of those innovations into it. And now we're starting to sell that vehicle in addition to offering services. So this is part of our strategy to be able to scale more rapidly. By having customers control and operate the vehicles themselves, we're able to scale globally more easily, and we're also able to scale more rapidly because we're not limited by operating the vehicles ourselves. We can put that into our customers' hands. And because it is it's really quite a straightforward vehicle to operate, we provide people with a 3-day training program, and then we can support them remotely. It makes this a very viable solution to growing.
I want to go back because I think there was a moment where I was describing where you're at as sort of this startup space. And I don't think that's correct. I think you've moved past startup. I mean, having worked in startups and worked in more mature organizations, I think there is a fine line between when you start to realize that you're no longer in that beginning stage. And so I kind of need you to maybe clarify where you're at and when that moment kind of pivoted from like, okay, or has it? Or do you still think of yourself in that? Yeah.
I do think we're still in a startup phase. I think we're at that stage now where we're on the cusp of pivoting, where we've had strong traction and we're shifting to more of a sales model of our vehicle versus our services. So building a lot of that internal operational infrastructure to try to support that and shifting more from, R&D and research to being operational and selling. But we are still very much in that startup stage where most of our company really is technical. It's mostly engineers, ocean services, manufacturing, and now starting to see how we will grow that sales team and support team.
Mm-hmm. It is a fine line between like startup and moving to scale up, right? Like, I mean, and it's, everybody has a different definition of where that falls. But, as a company, you sort of feel it, right? When you're like, okay, now we sort of get to the point where we can rinse and repeat in some ways. And so I'm super curious to hear, I know you've raised capital in many different, equity and a non-dilutive. In terms of capital, what role has it played for you in being able to do this work?
So raising capital has been a huge part of my job. And so we've really focused on blended capital, where we've raised capital from grants, from investors, and from debt. And I think for a hardware, software company like us, having that kind of approach has been very beneficial because we've been able to leverage some of the granting programs to be able to advance our technology to a stage where it is of more interest to investors. And then we've been able to layer on that investor funding and the knowledge of investors to be able to grow our company into a stage where it's more commercially focused, I would say. And then because we're building hardware, debt is important to help with cash flow management, especially because, we are selling, our contracts are fairly high value contracts. And so it can be very lumpy.
Of course. And I'm aware and know some of your investors, and maybe talk to us about like the importance of finding the right impact investors, because I know that's probably been very crucial for you as well.
It has. Ocean tech is an interesting sector to invest in, and it's really not for everyone. And so working with investors that understand this industry, that understand, hardware, software, government sales, industry sales has been really important because it's a different kind of capital. And when you take investment, these are relationships that are going to last for years. So you really need to make sure that it is the right relationship and that these investors are going to add value beyond that capital, because that additional value can be transformative. It can be value that comes in the form of connections for future fundraising, connections to potential advisors, to customers, to others in the industry, to potential partners. So we've been very fortunate in that we've been able to attract an excellent syndicate of investors, really global investors that are helping us position and grow the company in the right way.
The role of finding investors, the role of CEO, the role of a founder of an impact business, and then whatever your participation is in this kind of ocean, blue economy, world market globally. How do you balance all of that? How do you manage that?
I'm still figuring that one out.
There's no secret. Okay, great.
I don't know if there's a secret. Yes. I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I think building a great team is probably at the core of that. So people you trust that you can grow to take on many of these key functions. Because I feel like as a CEO, my focus is on fundraising, ensuring that we have sufficient runway to meet our priorities. It's on commercialization and sales, so ensuring we have strong industry fit, that we are bringing in the right type of customers, and it's on team, ensuring that we have a great team that works together well, that helps us hit our strategic priorities. And I think if you build the right team, you're able to shed some of those responsibilities of a CEO to your team and you work together. So it's a shared role. And so I'd say we've built a great team. And I think that's one of the key things.
When speaking with another business that's on this podcast series all about water and the blue economy, we asked a question around whether you focus on the impact and the sustainability component of what you're doing, or whether you need to just head down, focus on the business to make this really go. And then at some point you realize it's embedded, and that's great. How does it work for you? Because it seems a little bit different from what I'm hearing. Is the impact first, the business second?
So the impact we make is integrated into our technology. So every time you use one of our vehicles, instead of putting a crude ship that uses diesel out there, you're getting a reduction in the greenhouse gases that would be emitted. So we track that, the tons of CO2 that have been avoided. And the same thing for noise. Our vessels are nearly silent, so you're reducing the noise pollution in the ocean. And then there are specific impacts we make depending on the function of our USV. And so that would be, for example, we do a lot of work patrolling marine protected areas to understand them, but also to ensure that there's no illegal fishing there. So we track the number of hectares that we patrol. So those are some of the ways we track impact. But for us, the key thing is really to create technology that works and to put it in the hands of the users. And that is what's going to define our success. So our large goal is to have 500 of our vehicles on the water by 2030. If we do that, we will have tremendous impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing noise pollution, and we will have impact that is defined by the industries that we operate in. So I would say the two are very entwined, and we certainly track our mission, our impact, and have ways to report on that and look at ways that we can constantly advance that. But for us, we need to sell our USV to get it on the water where it's going to make impact. So the most of the focus is on finding that fit with the customer. How can this help you do your job better so that you can protect and understand the oceans better?
That's great. I love that sort of the lead with always like the impact is true. It's embedded in everything that you're doing and what you're doing with customers. I'm curious to, like, obviously you're based, your headquarters is in Victoria, Canada, but for all means and purposes, you're building like a company that has a global impact. What does that mean to you, and how do you really like build a company that has a base in a smaller Canadian city but has this like global reach and impact?
Yeah, so we're starting to do that and think about strategies. So in the past, we've done operations that have been on the other side of the world in the Persian Gulf. And there are definitely challenges with supporting operations here in North America and operations in a time zone that is, 12 hours different. Now we have an office in Halifax as well. So we do have an East Coast presence. So there's a 4-hour time difference. So that makes it a little bit more palatable for some operations. But as we look at expanding globally, we're really looking at expanding with partners. So having distributors and representatives who are able to work with our technology in those areas and support customers who use our technology. And so for us, that's really an important strategy to expanding globally, is finding those right partners who are able to ensure that our technology is used the way it should be.
All right. So then this is one of the last questions for you. I just think the future of ocean intelligence, what the world is going to look like and what the role open ocean robotics will play within that. What's your best guess?
So our focus is on providing that surface intelligence. So right now, there are lots of different ways people get information from the ocean. And there's a lot of academic institutions that have cabled networks. There's the Argo profiling float program. So there's a lot of information on the ocean, but there's not much focused on the surface. So that's really where we are focused on, having a network of surface vehicles that can help us understand those things, whether it's CO2 flux between the ocean and air to help us understand how our oceans are affected by climate change, but also how they're mitigating it, whether it's understanding vessel traffic, protecting borders, protecting against illegal fishing, or whether it's, new industries like carbon dioxide sequestration. So that's another industry where we've recently sold 2 vessels to be able to monitor these deployments to ensure that the carbon is truly sequestered. So we see ourselves being a global leader across all of those industries that depend on surface data. And we want to use our vehicles to collect that data that otherwise would be difficult or impossible to collect, and then be able to provide the most value from that data by fusing it with other types of data that are already publicly available. So data from satellite, data from some of those open source networks. So we really see the information we provide and collect as filling a very valuable need that currently is very addressed, and helping to enhance awareness of the ocean in that manner.
Your work, I think, is so important on the ocean, but like in the world, and like the impact it can, the cascading impact it can have. Last question, what's next and what are you excited about?
So I'm excited about scaling the use of our vehicles by customers. So getting more of our vehicles into the hands of customers where they're using it, they're operating it themselves, they're operating it in a variety of conditions, and starting to build those data sets and to be able to know how our boat operates in different conditions around the world and start to drive value from that data collected, but also continue to enhance our technology so that it works more, it's even more user-friendly.
Amazing. Well, we are super excited to see you grow and see your evolution as a company and the work that you're going to do all across the globe. And we really appreciate your time with us today. It's been fascinating. And, I think, like I said, the work is so important and so needed in our world. So thank you for joining us, Julie.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time for this interview and for digging deep in the ocean world. That's great that you're doing that.
As we wrap up today's episode, we hope you're leaving with insights that ignite a spark within you. At the core of every story we cover lies the undeniable truth. What truly drives impact is the relentless pursuit of change, paired with a deep commitment to the greater good. We're always reminded that making a mark on the world is not an easy task and isn't just about breaking through barriers. It's about thinking differently about what sustainability means in our ever-changing world and what is possible in creating it. Thank you so much for joining us on Ideas for Impact, where rebels with a cause redefine the meaning of what is possible. For more episodes that challenge the norm, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, always dive deeper into our journey with us at ideasforimpactagency.com. Until next time, friends, keep pushing the boundaries of what is possible.